crowd. Sorry I'm using this mic. I normally wouldn't use a microphone for a small group like this. I'm Will Marks. I'm the SVP of Business Development and Digital at Ovation Television. We have a great presentation this afternoon. My team, Elba, Flamenco, Jeff McCrann, who head up all the programming we do on Journy, and Steve Friedman, who's the creator and producer of one of our top series. We're going to talk a little bit about Journy, and then have a nice discussion with Steven. And basically, what does it mean as a cable network today that's traditionally been linear to move into digital across all of the ad-supported platforms? So I'll just give a little context, and I'm going to turn it over to Elba, and she's going to lead you through the rest of the session. Journy was launched in fall of 2017. We saw that cultural travel programming was doing really well on air, and so we decided to take that brand and extend it into the OTT market, and so we created the Journy brand. We've been out, like I said, for about 2 years now, and just been growing in scope and scale and distribution across. Actually, you're going to cover that, so I'm not going to get too much into distribution, but a lot of cool distribution, a lot of pieces of glass, so you can get the network now all in an ad-supported way. The three things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Elba, the three things that we focused on when we launched it were, it's really a new way to do travel cultural programming. So the storytelling, the way the programming is, it's not lists of top beaches, it's not scariest roller coasters, it's really in-depth, you are there inside narrative telling of people's experiences in a different place, in a different culture, and it's really resonated with our consumer, and we're really proud of it. And Steve's an amazing example of that kind of storytelling. He's going to talk about that process in a little bit. The second thing is, from day one, we wanted diversity on both sides of the camera. So hosts that are not always your traditional travel hosts, women-owned production companies, minority-owned production companies, and really having different, if everyone around the table looks the same, we don't think we're telling a real cultural travel story. We need to have different kinds of voices represented in every stage of the production process and every stage of the distribution. And that's something really near and dear to our heart. And the last thing is we noticed that the programming on air did rate well with a slightly younger viewer than on Ovation linear. So the focus became the millennial through Gen X demo. And we like to describe it as, it's the younger, hipper sister to Ovation. It's kind of we're here in Weston, it's kind of the W Hotel to the Weston Hotel. And we've tried to really stick with these three keys and live them and really walk that talk every day. And I'm going to turn it over to Elba Flamenco, who heads up all the content partnerships and just a tremendous amount of the product. And she's going to walk you through some distribution and some where we are today. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Take it. And here's the thing.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm going to scan to the computer.
Oh, go for it.
Seems better. So before I jump into talking a little bit more about Journy, just wanted to play a little sizzle, give you guys a feel and flavor for what we do. So as Will mentioned earlier in his introduction, distribution is a really big piece of what Ovation and Journy lean on. And so it all started for us with the Ovation cable television network. That's been our bread and butter for more than 10 years. It's where we have the strongest, most engaged audience. But of course, as we know, the cable TV landscape is shifting, and so for us, about 4 or 3 years ago, we decided how can we get more bullish on digital. And so we launched Ovation Now, which is our TV Everywhere app, which is connected to the Ovation cable TV network. And then we also launched Journy in fall of 2017. And for us, Journy was a great opportunity to not only branch out into travel, which historically for us has also done well in Ovation, but also to branch out outside of our MVPD relationships. So with Journy, we were finally able to shape a brand new entity that was not connected to any of these MVPD agreements, which meant that we could distribute it wherever we wanted. We could get very liberal and experimental with the content and who we work with. And it really gave us a certain freedom to be able to still engage in our core business, which is the cable TV network, but still have emerging digital revenues that we can start to foster, these digital partnerships and platforms that we can start to grow on. And that's what Journy became for us. So in year one, it was really all about testing a few different things. So we got experimental with content, everything from short form to mid form, influencer stuff, broadcast quality series. And so in year two, by that point, we had a sense of what's working, what's not working, and we were able to start expanding to more platforms. So we kicked off with Roku, which is the #1 TV connected device in the market, only Apple TV is second. And we, from there, launched on a variety of other connected devices. All of the major OTT over-the-top boxes we're on, so that includes Fire TV, Apple TV. We're also available on like TiVo through services like Plex and Viewed. And we also work with a lot of smart TV distribution platforms, of which Xumo is one of our greatest partners. You can find their UI on Samsung TVs, Vizio TVs, LG TVs, amongst many others. They have a footprint of about 40 million devices that they're on. So over time, we were able to connect to those third-party platforms and devices, but also we started to foster our owned and operated apps as well, and that's Android and iOS, so we're available on all the major tablets and phones through those systems as well. So it's been really getting that beachfront property, really understanding how each platform works, how we need to pivot our programming or our UI UX so that we're getting discovered on these platforms, and also how do we understand the nuances from platform to platform. Because the Roku audience, for example, is very different than an Apple TV audience, for example. Roku tends to be an older demographic. Usually it's a lot of grandparents getting these things for Christmas, that sort of thing, right? Whereas our Apple TV consumer is usually a cord cutter, a cord shaver, they're usually millennial, they're tech savvy, they're urbanites. So really just understanding the nuances platform to platform and understanding how we can leverage those relationships platform to platform. And that's when we get into our philosophy on partnerships. So Roku, as I mentioned earlier, is one of our best partners because they're very bullish with their ad-supported network. And they're very supportive of all their ad-supported partner channels on the platform. They have a big play with the Roku channel, like that's their big SVOD, AVOD service that they're trying to push. But they also understand that people come to the platform to watch individual brands. And so as a result, we have a great relationship where we keep them up to date with new shows that we're airing, talent that's available to them, any sort of weird activations that we want to experiment with. And when they have a partner that's a match, or an advertiser that's a match, they call us up and we find ways to work together. So what you see here is an example of such a collaboration. So Samsung came to Roku and they wanted to promote their Galaxy S10 series, but they wanted to really emphasize the artistic element of the phone. So what can you do as an artist, as a creative with this phone? So they wanted to emphasize the video elements, the photography elements, all of that. And so they wanted to work with partners that had artful, creative content. And so because I'm in their ear all day, they called me up. And we told them about a couple great shows we have, The Art of, one of Ovation's original series, exploring the artistic creative elements of everyday things. And then The Wanderers, which is a great mural series that's Australian, about muralists going around remote parts of Australia. But it's just impressive because for us, we're only 2 years old, we're going on our 3rd year, yet we have shown up competitively next to channels like Tastemade, next to Bon Appetit, next to Nat Geo. These are established networks that have been around and have way more money than we do. So it's been really impressive, and it just speaks to how scrappy we are as a team and how flexible we are, and how with the right partner, they can leverage our strengths, which is usually content and brand, and we can leverage their strength, which is usually distribution, scale, and that sort of thing. And another great partnership that I wanted to highlight is Huckberry. So we not only pair up with the distributors that we work with, but we also try to pair up with as many media brands, consumer brands, or anyone really out there that speaks to our look, feel, and the audience that we're trying to cultivate. So Huckberry is a great example. They are a retailer, both online, and they now have in-store activations that they do as well. And Jeff actually came in with a catalog one day and was like, these guys are great, we should call them. And we literally just picked up the phone and called them. And it worked out because Huckberry has a certain ethos. Even though they're selling clothes, it really is clothes for a particular consumer. It's for the traveler, the explorer, the person that's out there roughing it. But it's all very like high-end, beautiful clothing as well. So they also wanted to look luxury, they wanted to look premium. And so when we called them up and we told them about Journy and who we reach and what our brand ethos is, there was a lot of overlap with that. And so we did a collaboration where they featured our content and our brand in their newsletter, on their website, and to their audience. And likewise, we did the same with them. They had a lot of high-quality branded short form, everything from like Kelly Slater surfer interviews to skateboarders and that sort of thing. So it's all really great looking content. We put it in our app. We did a blog post on it. We promoted the relationship, and it did really great for us. And it's not necessarily something that's a huge numbers driver, but for us, it's really about quality versus quantity. We're small, we're niche, so we don't expect to hit the billions of views that like a Cheddar type app or network would hit. But for us, it's really about knowing who our consumer is, understanding what they're interested in, and having a very engaged consumer. Anyone that comes into our app, they usually watch about 60 minutes worth of content. So that's a couple of episodes of something. So they're engaged, they're following us on social. When we target them to reactivate them, get them back into the app, they're responsive to it. So working with brands that have that similar overlap of audience is really helpful. And at the same time, they get to reach a new audience too, because with the Ovation Cable TV network, it's an older audience, it's an affluent audience. They're usually college educated, and they have money to spend. So for someone like Huckberry, the millennials are great, but if they can reach also that older money bags audience, then that's helpful to them too. So again, audience sharing and having both the spectrum from the older affluent to like the younger urban consumer is, it's really great having that spectrum, and working with these partners, it just helps us blanket that even better. And now to get a little bit more into the look and feel of Journy, our content, and our philosophy for programming, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff McCrann, our Head of Development and Acquisitions.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I have notes. I'm usually locked up in a screening room all day, so I don't know how to look at people. As Elba and Will both mentioned, Journy was an opportunity to extend the footprint of Ovation as a brand. And that's a tricky thing because it's very different audiences, really. I mean, there's certainly intersections in travel. I don't know if you've been fortunate enough to travel, but you'll notice that there's a real chasm between the average traveler is either a retiree and they're out, on their pension going about to, wherever, or they're backpackers. So that's a great divide, basically, of what it is between linear cable and digital networks. You have retirees watching cable networks, which is Ovation, and then you have cord cutters, and those are both the sort of the core travel demo. So with that, that's a little tricky to program for. And so our linear network has Thursday nights devoted to promoting Journy content, which is great because that leads to more installs, and it seems like a shot of adrenaline for Journey's digital network sort of imprint. With that came a job in programming diginet that reached an audience spread over about 5 generations. As you'll see in the slide here, Journey's carved out a unique place in the digital ecosystem. We want to have content that deals with nature and wildlife, for example, but we're not Nat Geo. We want to have high-end food stuff, but we're not Bon Appetit. We want to explore pressing political issues in other continents, but we're also not doing edgy Vice kind of shows. So while we could have chosen to focus on 5-star resorts and the world's most beautiful beaches, it became clear that it was more exciting for us to come up from a place of ethical travel. And that's where my job sort of comes into play with content curation. Before I came over to Journy, I was a participant media, and that was really interesting to see the way, with a rated network, trying to make the world a better place. It was always tricky because I think Americans aren't that curious about the world outside their own backyard. Travel is the great bridge to that. So having a travel network is a great opportunity to get people to see things they wouldn't normally see. And with Journy, we can not only tell you about the coolest designed hotels and the craziest coral beaches, but we can show our audience firsthand that peoples and cultures of the top travel destinations and places they wouldn't find in a travel guide. My favorite series isn't even on this next slide here. These are our big shows. These are the shows that exist both on the Ovation Network and on Journy. And they're all great. We have celebrities like Sam Neill. We have Chasing the Sun, which we'll get into. We have a show called Voyager that we share with NBC, which is a great Latinx host who he basically travels by boat all around the continents and learning about food and cultures outside our own. Travel Man, which is a UK show starring Richard Ayoade and all his celebrity friends. So you get people like Paul Rudd, you get people like John Hamm. It's just a great show too. It's really irreverent and comical. And then there's Lee Chan's World Food Tour. She's an Australian celebrity, sort of a news presenter, and she loves food, and so you can't help but fall in love with her every time she eats something. Those things. My favorite show isn't on here though. It's called Resilient Cities, and Resilient Cities is sort of what I want all the shows to do. It says, okay, here's Kuwait, here's Greece. These are places that you have sort of an idea in your mind. To quote our very eloquent president, shithole countries, but it explores artists working there and like breaking open your preconceived notion of what a place is. Seeing like a belly dancer in Beirut, seeing a drag artist in Iraq, like that's cool to me, and that's what we can do with our content. So that's exciting. But then those are acquisitions. Primarily like with our budgets and with Upstart Network, we're doing content acquisitions. But that only goes so far. A lot of the stuff that we want to do, the stories we want to tell, they don't exist yet, and that's where co-productions come in. Fortunately, I met Stephen Friedman. We're going to jump into a co-production we have called Chasing the Sun. I met Stephen Friedman back at Participant Media. He's a one-man band, basically, production company. He had a show called Chasing the Sun that he was trying to get up and running at the time, and then since leaving Participant and starting at Ovation, he got it up and made, and luckily they were going to do a second season, and so we jumped in on that, and we were fortunate enough to jump in on that and make a whole new series, and now it's a tentpole for Journy, and so I'm going to lend it to you. I'm going to get myself out of the spotlight.
We'll play a clip from the show, too.
My name is Stephen Friedman. I guess you can call me a dreamer, a wanderer, a drifter. You can maybe even call me a storyteller. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. So live life with no excuses, travel with no regret. The world is what you make of it, so go see it. This is my journey in Asia, and the stories are Chasing the Sun. Vietnam is manic, serene, thrilling, and relaxing all at the same time. It will animate all your senses with its bustling cities and friendly people. age-old tradition juxtaposed with modern fusions, density and open spaces, Holland Bay and its 1,000 towering limestone islands, water puppets and face masks, regionally specific street foods, just a few feet away from trendy contemporary restaurants, decal and epic caves, barbershops and zines, skin art and street art, rich culture and outside influences, Ninh and her football growers, booting and endless scooters. Vietnam is developing, transforming and modernizing rapidly, and you can feel it.
That's just a tease of what Chasing the Sun is. Chasing the Sun excites me because it's sort of ethical travel in a nutshell. Stephen goes to places all around the world and he learns about locals. He starts from the inside out, and he, more importantly, like, you're going to small businesses, which I think is so cool. And so I would like you to tell us a little bit about Chasing the Sun. Where did it come from? Before you came to us, like where did you start out in the journey?
Okay, the journey. Okay, well, I've been doing this for about 10 years now, unfortunately. For me, it all started, I used to be a professional surfer, world surf tour. I did myself, career came to an end. I was upset, sad, and I needed to travel more because that's me. I started a production company about 10 years ago called Save Day Films, and kicked off with my first TV show at age 23, which was The Blueprint. It wasn't quite what I wanted. It wasn't what I envisioned at the time. And then, fast forward another 6-7 years, did a whole bunch of other productions. I'm like, let me go back and think of a travel genre of a show in the travel space, and how do I make it different? And there's so many travel shows out there, but for me, Chasing the Sun was it was more of a metaphor, like chasing dreams, chasing your goals. And when I watched a lot of like travel shows out there, to be honest, I didn't really care about what the host was saying. I was more intrigued by the people that they were interviewing. So let's tell their story. And we self-funded season 1 ourselves. It was kind of also a test for us. We wanted to see how the audience would react. So what we did, we did a long form and short form, where with the short form we launched first, just to kind of like see where it would do well. We partnered up with a couple publishers in the UK, in the States, and also such as like DT204 as another one, and it started performing really well. So we said, okay, cool, the long form could work well. So we went across, we sold it to Nat Geo, I did really, really well in National Geographic, and they said, hey, we want a season 2. And yeah, then you guys at Ovation hit me up, Jeff hit me up, and said, hey, we love Chasing the Sun. We really want to co-pro this with you. And I was all for it. I think what Journy represents is exactly what Chasing the Sun is. It's about people. And I remember Jeff actually contacted me. I was in Bali. I was on a bit of a holiday. He said, hey, like, it's been greenlit, let's get going. And we had 3 months to do pre-production and put everything together. And we set off to Asia. And it was quite an experience, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of ups and downs. And we had a WhatsApp group. And after I met Elba, she's got a gift game, quite down to a T. And for us, it was more like it was a big test for us as a production company, and also being the first show that they've commissioned in the travel space. And I think it worked really well. And we ticked off all the boxes. They weren't like Journy and Ovation. They believed in us, and they believed in what we were trying to do and trying to achieve. And 6 months later, first episode was cut, sent it to it, and a couple of changes. And 8 episodes later, and that's season 2 of Chasing the Sun. And I think we originally went out to do 10 subject stories per destination, which would have made 80 stories, short like story segments. But in the end, we filmed 106 stories. So long term, if you can like structure it quite well, is that we also have digital short clips that will also be launched and put out there as a marketing tool to really like rev up the series itself. And it's just more content. And as Jeff said, it's always challenging working with budgets. But one thing with us is that this was always a passion project for us, and yeah, the outcome is what you see right there. It's yeah.
While we're on that, your company has a very unique way of going about presenting content, talking about like cutting up bits for interstitials, cutting up stuff for social. Like, will you get into that a little bit? Because I think it's really interesting. It's not, most production companies haven't evolved to that place yet, and it's required now pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Call it free.
Yeah, we kind of think differently. I remember when we first did test of season 1 of Chasing the Sun, we wanted to go at it as a 360 approach. How are we able to raise funding at the same time where everyone also benefits, not just the production company? So that's when the short form comes in, because publishers need content. Brands want short form, and they want to be associated to short form where they can put it on their own social channels. And at the end, brand association or awareness will always be present once the long form is broadcast on TV. So it's very beneficial, and at the same time, it can drive audience. And also with the short form, we really test, like with different demographics, what does well, what doesn't do well. And that, I think, from season 1, it was really educational for us, where we were able to adapt what the audience were really wanting to see. And I don't think enough, as you said, not enough production companies utilize the benefits of what social media has. So when we were on the road, we were getting hit up. There was one story in India, for example. We were supposed to do quite a dark story about these women in India, and that fell through 3 days before. And one of the followers on Instagram of Chasing the Sun, they saw that we were in India. They said, "Oh, please, can you come tell us the story? Come tell our story." And we were like, okay, because we needed a story. And luckily, we were in the same town as them, and it was the burlap people, the burlap story. And yeah, we went to their factory, and yeah, it turned out to be an amazing story. And you can just see how utilizing the digital space and the social realm and how it can connect everyone. And because of that, once the show started airing, and all these stories that we told, some of the people did have quite they call themselves influencers, but it's utilizing their audience too, to also create awareness for it. And yeah, it is a 360 approach. So I think just to break it down, to make it simple, phase 1 is behind the scenes making of the show, where you're obviously utilizing all the digital platforms. Phase 2 is the launch of the short form content, and then phase 3 is the premiere of the TV show. So you can actually sell it as like a 9-month campaign from start to finish, which is extremely beneficial because you will be able to create awareness for the show, create awareness for the brands behind the show, and also create awareness for the TV network behind the show too. So it's a win-win for everyone. That's to sum it up, short and sweet.
Cool. Does anyone have any questions?
I do actually.
Great.
I think what you do is great. I'm curious to see what involves the production. How many people are there? When they go with you in India, how many followers do you think, if you want to interview someone? Do you have a big team? Is it a small team, or trying to keep it intimate?
Very small.
Oh, very small. So,
I mean, obviously the images are beautiful.
yeah, that's 16 hours a day of filming. So we work with tourism boards. That's one of our always go-to approaches. It's the tourism boards because A, they also have budget. B, they know we are there to promote the country. So with that, we are able to bring down costs, so we don't need a line producer with us. For instance, for season 2, it was just myself and the director. So, and we had 2 cameras, and we had the story structures, and we just went there, guns blazing. And luckily with the tourism boards, they would always have a fixer for us. Yeah, there were certain times, we were actually supposed to go to Sri Lanka. We were filming in India, and it was 4 days we were supposed to go to Sri Lanka, and then obviously the terrorist attack happened, and we were like, what do we do? And we had a really, because of the budget being so tight, we had a very tight schedule to deliver, and we literally had 2 weeks to plan the next destination, which was Taiwan. And luckily we built such a good relationship with the Hong Kong Tourism Board. We said, hey, we're trying to reach the Taiwan Tourism Board. They're not responding to any of our emails, and they just sent one email out to the tourism board. They contacted us and said, hey, we'd love you guys to come. So the production, what goes behind the production, it was a very small crew. But it's the tourism boards and just working with people. But it's like a ballet. You have to go with the flow and make sure that you always just have to keep moving forward. That's basically it.
Small team, but also a crew of like 5, including hosts over like 3 continents.
Basically. So it's my team in London. Some people are assigned on the job, but it's basically a crew of 5 and then the executives at Journy Innovation. So a very small team.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you focus specifically on Asia? Because I guess it
This
depends.
season, yes.
This
The
season.
first season's more domestic, and also you go other places too.
Yeah,
First
season 1 we went to
Cuba.
we went to Cuba, which was I gave it a complicated, it was a nightmare, but that's what it is. Went to Cuba, Jamaica, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil. We filmed in New York, Florida. What was other? Costa Rica. There we go, Costa Rica. We went in Costa Rica, we worked with all the tourism boards, and I think we utilized social media a lot for getting the stories that we wanted to tell, especially in Ecuador. We wanted to tell kind of a heartwarming story, so we worked with an organization called Smile Train to help families that can't afford palate surgery for their infants. And they kind of like were our fixers, because at that time the tourism board didn't really know about the show yet. We hadn't really secured a TV network approach, and at the time everyone was still very old-fashioned and they didn't really see a 360 approach. So we were lucky enough to work with Smile Train, which is a brand itself, and said, hey listen, we'll give you content if you can help us organize this episode, and that's how it was structured. So season 1 was more South America. We touched on North America, and in season 2, Asia, because Asia is very, very unknown. And if you actually watch the episodes, my favorite episode in season 2 must be Japan. We filmed different people in such unique ways. There was this transgender toy collective. Like, honestly, it was like opening up a door and stepping into Narnia. Like, you had no idea what was behind that door, and we stepped into this another world. And she was such a fascinating person. To this drag queen, also such a unique person. To this amazing artist who does her medium as chalk, like incredible. And then even like Bali, going to the sacred ceremony, the naming ceremony, out of the blue. But that was through a contact, because I go to Bali a lot, because it's my happy place. And my driver there, Ayi, who's also one of the stories in Bali, it was her son's naming ceremony. And this was the high priest, and that was such a cultural experience that a lot of people don't get to see. So I think travel does broaden one's mind, but at the same time, everyone's so stuck on their phones and just kind of lost that they don't ask questions anymore, and they don't strike up conversations. And I think with Chasing the Sun, it's all about someone watching the show and going, hey, instead of going to that amazing backdrop, which you can go to, let's go strike up a conversation at that person, at that amazing backdrop. And and then we're obviously working on the next season, season 3, which is in the works. So where we will go, that's
TBD,
yeah.
proprietary.
Yeah.
Isn't it that you work with these tourism boards, so I guess that in partially is the funding for every season, and I think that the tourism boards are better organized in Asia than they are in other parts of the world. So you also, you said, well, you have an influencer, and in Bali there's a lot of beautiful girls who say they're influencers and then go surfing and take videos, which is great. But so you're still in a sort of like a really low cost production.
Yeah.
But you then have a TV outlet which is more professional. You work with these tourism boards. But on the other hand, you said about the Ecuador thing, we get content from them. You then take their content and integrate it.
No. We actually gave them content, so they could put on their social channels and tag Chasing the Sun TV and the networks behind it. Yeah. So that's kind of how it works. And Bali obviously.
It's the balance between the creative process and also you need money to pay for airplane tickets.
Yeah. Like, I hate saying the word influencer, so let me reiterate. So for instance, Bali, we worked with Bali Belly, and they are a publication, this amazing kind of like indie publication.
I thought
And
Bali
they,
Belly was too much.
no, yeah, that's how it started. And they have such a huge outreach on their side of things, and they kind of opened up Bali for us. So it's finding that one key person that basically opens up
Steven's famous there, basically.
Yeah, it's finding one key person there, and that literally opens up everything for for us. But like, yes, the tourism boards in Asia are very like on it, and they're very easy to work with. The first season I did when I was 23 was we filmed through Africa, and that is a nightmare. Apart from like after Rwanda is one of the most amazing tourism boards I have ever personally worked with. But I remember we were going to Egypt, and we were actually working. The tourism board kind of let us down last minute, and we were working. We were working with this tour operator, and they actually smuggled us in. And so it's a crazy long story how we got into Egypt at the time, because that's when the revolution started, and it was quite an experience. And yeah, just certain places, tourism boards are a little bit easier to work with than others. I think. Here in the States, every single state has their own little tourism board, and yeah, I think working with tourism boards mostly is because it's also their output, which they can also create awareness for the TV show itself. It's utilizing their digital platforms, which also helps benefits the network. So, yeah, tourism boards.
Thank you guys so much for coming and learning about Journy.